My name's Tyler. I'm 31, and I live just outside of Austin. I've got a good job doing IT consulting for a private firm. Nothing glamorous, but it pays the bills and leaves room for small luxuries. Weekend getaways, concert tickets, and an ever-growing collection of vinyl records I never seem to finish organizing. I bought my first house 2 years ago. Small place, one story, backyard for my dog Milo. It was the first thing that ever felt fully mine. And then there's Jenna. She's 29, a creative director for a boutique marketing agency, and the kind of person who could walk into any room and instantly have people leaning in to hear what she's saying. She's all fire and motion, big energy, quick wit, the kind of woman who doesn't just make an impression, she leaves a mark. We met 3 years ago at a mutual friend's game night. She beat everyone at a board game none of us had even heard of before, laughed about it, and told me I looked like someone who took trivia too seriously. That was her opener. Our first actual date was at a food truck park. She made me try kimchi tacos. I made her try deep-fried Oreos. We talked for hours about movies, childhood memories, our weirdly specific pet peeves, and what we'd do if we ever won the lottery. It didn't feel like a first date. It felt like we'd known each other in some other life. From there, things just clicked. Within 6 months, she had her own key. Within a year, she wasn't really staying over anymore. She lived with me. She fit into my world effortlessly, but also shook it up in all the right ways. She painted the guest room an outrageous teal, started leaving sticky notes on the fridge with random song lyrics, took over one of my closets, and somehow convinced me to donate half my old hoodies. We fell into routines that felt like home. Sunday pancakes, Thursday night movies, Saturday morning walks with Milo followed by coffee at the little shop on the corner. She brought color and noise into my quiet life, and I loved that. We were a team, planning vacations, talking about buying a bigger place eventually, even tossing around baby names in that half-serious way couples do when the future feels close. Looking back now, I can still picture those early days so clearly. Waking up next to her with sunlight sneaking through the blinds, her hair a mess, her foot always somehow on my side of the bed. Late-night grocery runs where we ended up with wine and cookie dough and forgot the actual things we went for. Singing off-key in the car. Laughing so hard we'd have to pull over. It all felt real. It all felt right. Life with Jenna felt easy in a way I didn't know was possible. I'd had relationships before, sure, some good, some that fizzled out, one that ended badly, but none that felt so natural, so lived in. With Jenna, I didn't feel like I had to perform or impress or over-explain myself. She understood how my brain worked, and she didn't try to change me. She just sort of made room for both of us. We shared the kind of rhythm that only happens when two people just click. She worked full-time from home, which meant her days were filled with Zoom meetings, mood boards, campaign calls, and bursts of creativity. I commuted into the city most weekdays, usually home by 5:30 unless traffic or a last-minute client issue kept me late. But no matter what kind of day we each had, we had this silent agreement that dinner time was ours. We cooked together often. Nothing fancy, fajita bowls, pasta, stir-fry. She always put on music, usually something old school or soulful, and danced barefoot while I chopped veggies. If I was stressed, she'd take the lead. If she was drained, I'd order Thai and let her zone out on the couch. It was a partnership in the truest sense of the word. A lot of give and take. A lot of I got you. Jenna brought a kind of spontaneity into the house that balanced out my tendency to plan every little thing. She'd suggest we drive to the lake on a Tuesday night just to catch the sunset, or wake me up early on a Saturday for a surprise farmer's market trip. She'd leave notes in my work bag, sometimes sweet, sometimes wildly inappropriate depending on her mood. It kept things fun, light. I never felt like we were stagnating, even after moving in together. We made friends as a couple, too. Double dates, barbecues, trivia nights. My best friend Luke loved her. Said she reminded him of his sister, blunt, fearless, a little chaotic in the best way. Jenna got along with everyone. She was magnetic like that. People remembered her. And it felt good being the guy who got to walk into rooms with her on my arm. Our house started to reflect the life we were building. Photos on the fridge. Travel magnets. A shoe rack overflowing with her boots and sandals. 2 toothbrushes side by side. She planted herbs in the kitchen window, even though neither of us knew what to do with them. I upgraded my old couch to one we picked out together. Something softer, something she could nap on with Milo curled up at her feet. It felt like our space, our home. We weren't engaged yet, but we talked about it all the time. The kind of when not, if conversations. She had this Pinterest board full of venue ideas, dresses, color palettes. I didn't look too closely, but I liked knowing she had a vision. She'd drop hints now and then, point out rings she liked, mention friends who had just gotten engaged. It wasn't pressure, not really. Just excitement. Expectation. I had already started saving for the ring. We were in that part of life where everything feels like it's building towards something. A future that you don't just dream about. You actually start mapping out. I thought I knew what I was signing up for. I thought I knew who she was. And at the time, I couldn't imagine anything pulling us off track. Looking back now, those years with Jenna almost feel like a dream. Like a life I walked through half asleep because everything felt so stable, so certain. We weren't perfect, not by any stretch, but what we had worked. I thought it worked because we were honest with each other, because we laughed often, because the quiet moments felt just as meaningful as the loud ones. We hit all the milestones at our own pace. First, I love you 6 months in. She said it first, unexpectedly, while we were sitting in the car eating takeout fries. I remember the exact moment. She reached into the bag, pulled out the last fry, looked over at me with a smirk, and said, "You know I love you, right?" Like it wasn't even a question. Like it had always been true. I said it back without thinking, and for once in my life, it didn't feel scary. A year after that, we went to New Orleans for our anniversary. That trip felt like something out of a movie. Live music in the streets, a little too much wine, and slow mornings in bed with sunlight coming through the hotel curtains. I remember thinking, this is it. This is what life is supposed to feel like. We had routines by then that made life feel full. Tuesday tacos. Movie nights where she'd always fall asleep halfway through, curled into me, claiming she was just resting her eyes. Game nights with friends that turned into long, messy debates about nothing. Sunday evenings cleaning the house with a shared playlist and matching mugs of coffee. She'd started leaving little touches around the house that made it feel more like hers too. Floral candles, a wall calendar with quotes she scribbled on, her shoes in every corner. It didn't bother me. It felt right. Like our home was becoming an extension of us. Like we were slowly turning 2 lives into one. Professionally, we were both doing well. I just locked in a big client contract that gave me more freedom and a bit of breathing room financially. Jenna's marketing firm had picked up some steady work with a local brand that had her fired up creatively. She'd come home from meetings buzzing with energy, talking about shoots and color palettes and audience personas I didn't fully understand, but loved listening to her describe. We talked about the future a lot. Not just the wedding, but life beyond it. Kids, 2, maybe 3. She liked the idea of having a daughter. I said I didn't care as long as they got her laugh. We even mapped out rough timelines. Buy a bigger house in 2 years. Take a big international trip before kids came along. Maybe Italy or Japan. Jenna wanted to learn to garden. I said I'd build her raised beds in the backyard if she didn't mind that I'd probably kill half the plants. I had started talking to her sister about rings. Quietly, just to get an idea of what she liked. Jenna's sister and I weren't super close, but I knew she'd want to be involved. I figured I had a few more months of planning, and then I'd propose on a weekend trip she and I had already blocked off in the calendar for late spring. Everyone around us seemed to expect it. It's only a matter of time, people would say. And I agreed. We were good. Solid. I was sure. At least, I thought I was. The first time I noticed something was off, it wasn't dramatic. No lipstick on a collar, no mysterious phone calls in the middle of the night. It was small, so small I almost convinced myself I imagined it. But once the seed is planted, it grows whether you want it to or not. It started with her phone. Jenna was never secretive with her phone, not in an oversharing way, but she was relaxed about it. We had an unspoken agreement. We respected each other's privacy, but we didn't hide anything. If her phone buzzed while we were watching a movie, she'd glance at it, maybe respond, toss it aside. But lately, things had changed. I noticed her turning her screen away from me more often. She started taking it with her into the bathroom, even when she was just brushing her teeth. At first, I chalked it up to habit, maybe a new group chat or something for work. But then she started muting notifications, something she'd never done before. I told myself not to overthink it. Everyone deserves privacy. But it kept happening. Then there was the matter of her schedule. Jenna used to share everything with me. Her meetings, her freelance gigs, dinner plans with friends. Lately, she'd become vague. Going out with a couple people from the team became her go-to answer, even when I asked who exactly she was meeting. Sometimes she wouldn't get home until late, midnight, even later, and she'd breeze in with a quick kiss and say, "Ugh, long night, I'm exhausted," and disappear into the shower before I could ask much more. She always looked a little too put together when she left, hair done, makeup flawless, outfits that were a little more revealing than usual. I don't say that with judgment. She always dressed with confidence, and I loved that about her. But there was a difference. This felt intentional, curated. It wasn't just for fun or fashion. It was for something. For someone. And the way she acted when she got home? That's what really got to me. Distant. Distracted. Like her body was there, but her mind was still somewhere else. I'd ask how her night went and get the same recycled line. It was fine. Just work stuff. No details. No stories. Not even a complaint about a coworker, which used to be her favorite post-work ritual. The change was slow, like a dimmer switch turning down the light in a room you used to know by heart. I started noticing gaps in her stories. Like one night she said she went to dinner with someone named Claire from her team, but I overheard her on a call a few days later saying Claire had been out of town all week. I didn't call her out on it. I wanted to be sure. I wanted to believe it was just a fluke. But a part of me had already stopped believing the story. I started keeping track, mentally. How often she went out. How often her phone stayed glued to her hand. How vague her explanations had become. It wasn't just one thing. It was everything starting to shift out of focus. I remember lying awake one night while she slept beside me, her breathing steady and peaceful. I stared at the ceiling and thought, something's wrong. I don't have proof, but I know it. I feel it in my gut. It's a terrible place to be, somewhere between suspicion and silence. You don't want to accuse someone you love of something that might not be real. But you also don't want to be the last one to figure it out. The weirdest part was how normal she kept acting. If anything, Jenna was more affectionate than usual. She started complimenting me out of nowhere, telling me I looked good in a shirt she'd seen me wear a dozen times, suddenly offering to cook dinner when she hadn't touched a frying pan in weeks. She even suggested a weekend away, just the two of us, up in the hill country. Said we hadn't had real, us time in a while. And yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't entirely there with her anymore. It was like being in a conversation that had a hidden track playing underneath. Everything sounded fine, but something kept pulling at my attention. I caught myself watching her more closely, not in an accusing way, just trying to understand, trying to read what she wasn't saying. She'd laugh at something on her phone and quickly flip the screen away. Or she'd step outside to take a call and return a few minutes later with a tone shift, like she'd reassembled her mood before walking back in. None of that is criminal. None of it even justifies suspicion by itself. But when it happens over and over again, you start to feel like you're living next to someone instead of with them. We went to a party at a friend's place one Saturday, nothing huge, just 10 or 12 people from our circle. Normally, we'd stick together, drift between groups, refill each other's drinks. This time, Jen had disappeared almost immediately after we arrived. I found her later out on the porch talking to a guy I didn't recognize. She was smiling, laughing, hand lightly brushing his arm during whatever story he was telling. I waited, not interrupting, just watching. When she finally noticed me, she waved me over and introduced the guy, someone she apparently worked with on a freelance campaign a few months ago. Her tone was breezy, casual. I shook his hand. He was polite. No weirdness, no red flags. But I couldn't help noticing how quickly she pivoted the conversation, how fast she changed the subject once I was standing there. That night in bed, she curled up against me, her head on my chest like she always used to. And I held her, arms wrapped tight, because I missed this. But even as I lay there with her weight against me, I felt disconnected. Like we were play-acting our roles, doing what couples do without fully being in it. I started thinking about how often she was out these days. How much more time she spent at work, even though her actual job was mostly remote. She had started doing more late meetings, saying her clients were all over the place time zone-wise. Totally reasonable on paper. But it never used to be like that. I hadn't said anything. I didn't want to start a fight. I didn't even know what I would be accusing her of if I did. Everything I noticed could still be explained. And maybe that's what made it harder. If she'd been cold or distant, I could have pointed to that. But she wasn't. She was still there, smiling, laughing, touching my hand. It's just that the silences were getting longer. And something about the way she looked at me now, it didn't land the same. Maybe this was just part of being in a long-term relationship. Maybe we were just going through a quiet stretch, one of those valleys everyone talks about. Maybe it was nothing. But that voice in my head, the one I'd been trying to ignore, wasn't going away. And it wasn't saying much yet. Just a whisper. Just a question. Why does this feel different? You ever wake up next to someone and realize they're looking at you like they're thinking about something you're not part of? That's how it felt with Jenna lately. Not all the time, just in flashes. Like she'd be smiling with me, and then suddenly, somewhere else. Not angry. Not cold. Just gone. She'd snap back quickly. Joke about the day ahead. Ask what I wanted for breakfast. But those little flickers, they stayed with me. The moments where her eyes were half a second too far away. Where the pause between a question and her answer lasted just a little too long. The kind of things you can't prove, but you can feel. There were more of those lately. I started to notice how she'd talk around things. Like, when I'd ask about her day, she'd give me pieces. Oh, had a call with a client, then ran a few errands, but never specifics. Before, she used to tell me about the quirky client who always mispronounced strategy or the coffee shop barista who called her champ. Now it was just summaries. High-level stuff. No color. No texture. One night, I asked if she wanted to watch the next episode of a show we'd been binging, and she looked at me like she forgot we were even watching it. Oh, yeah, she said. I think I might have watched one without you. Her voice was casual, but it landed weird. She never did that before. Watch ahead. That was our thing. Even if we were off by a few days, we always waited. I wanted to brush it off. Everyone gets distracted. Everyone zones out. But that tiny collection of moments, her vague stories, the offbeat smile, the out-of-nowhere compliments, was starting to form something I couldn't quite define. A shape in the fog. Not clear enough to accuse, but too sharp to ignore. There was also this new confidence in her, this glow. She'd always been sure of herself, but this was different. She was dressing up more, even just to run errands. Taking extra time with her makeup. Posting more on social media again after months of barely using it. Every post had this curated vibe, like she was broadcasting something, though I couldn't tell what. She wasn't doing anything inappropriate, not visibly, but it made me pause. I remember one night, she came home late and walked straight into the bedroom without saying anything. I was on the couch, lights off, TV still on but muted. I heard her drop her purse, then kick off her shoes, and finally call out, "Sorry I'm late. Work dinner went long." I said, "All good." And she replied, "You okay?" I told her yeah, but I wasn't. I just didn't know what to do with that feeling. It wasn't even anger. It was a kind of confusion. Like the math wasn't adding up, and I couldn't figure out which variable had changed. I didn't feel pushed away exactly. She was still saying all the right things. Still calling me babe, still tagging me in dog memes, still kissing me goodbye. But her energy was different. Her attention had a gap in it. Like she was holding a conversation in her head that I wasn't part of. I hadn't said anything. I didn't want to accuse her of something I couldn't name. I also didn't want to admit that I was scared. Not of losing her, but of losing what I thought we had. The idea of us. The comfort of believing I really knew her. That what we were building was real. I tried to shake it off. Told myself we were just busy, tired, stretched thin. That every couple goes through these little misfires. That maybe I was just being sensitive. But there's a different kind of silence that creeps in when you stop asking questions. Not because you trust them, but because you're afraid of the answers. And lately, I was starting to leave more questions unasked. When Jenna brought up wedding plans again, I was honestly relieved. We were in the kitchen, eating takeout straight from the containers, half watching some cooking competition show. Out of nowhere, she said, "I was thinking we should check out venues this weekend. Some of the ones I bookmarked are having spring tours." I looked up, a little surprised, and just nodded. "Yeah, sure," I said, trying to match her energy. "Let's do it." I think part of me had started to worry she wasn't as interested anymore, not just in the wedding, but maybe in us. So her bringing it up felt like a signal, like proof that we were still moving forward, still on track. And I wanted that. I wanted something to ground me in the version of our life that made sense. That weekend, we drove out to see 3 venues, an old winery, a converted barn outside Dripping Springs, and a sleek modern place with a rooftop ceremony space overlooking the city skyline. She was all over it, asking questions, filming walkthroughs, texting her sister photos as we went. I hung back, letting her lead, trying to picture what it would actually feel like to stand there in front of our friends and family and say vows I still believed in. She looked happy. Genuinely. Her smile was real, her laughter easy. I caught myself staring at her when she wasn't looking, trying to reconcile the version of her I'd been quietly analyzing the past few weeks with the one I saw standing in the afternoon sun, talking about floral arrangements and seating charts. She was excited, committed, and I wanted to match that. I wanted to believe this meant everything else I'd noticed. The distance, the dodged questions, the odd quiet moments were just noise. Temporary. Fixable. Later that night, we sat on the living room floor with a bottle of wine and started sketching out a rough guest list. "We can't go over 100, she said, crossing names off as fast as she wrote them. "No offense, but I'm not inviting your high school soccer coach." I laughed. "He came to my graduation party." She smirked. "So did a balloon artist. Want me to send him a save the date too?" I felt like we were back. Not just pretending, but really in it again. We talked about colors. She wanted forest green and gold. Music. I vetoed anything with a TikTok dance. And food. She insisted on having a mac and cheese bar. At one point, she looked at me across the mess of scribbled papers and said, "We're really doing this, huh?" I said, "Yeah, we are." And I meant it. We set a date, 6 months out. Late fall. Enough time to plan, but close enough to feel real. I emailed a jeweler the next day to finalize the ring. Jenna already had a temporary one we picked out together, but I wanted to surprise her with something more personal. Something I knew she'd love. Over the next couple of weeks, we met with a planner, reserved the venue, locked down a photographer, and even did cake tastings. Jenna seemed to throw herself into the process with a kind of focus I hadn't seen from her in months. And maybe that's why I stopped asking questions. Maybe I wanted to believe this was the version of her that was true. The one who was building a life with me, not hiding pieces of it. I still noticed things. Little things. But I told myself we were just in a stressful season. That wedding planning brought out everyone's weird sides. That I was overthinking again. Because how could someone plan a wedding with you if they weren't really all in? Right? The day before the wedding was supposed to be simple. Just final touches, a quick check-in with the planner, and a quiet dinner with my best man, Luke. I'd taken the day off work, not because I needed to, but because I wanted to be present. I wanted to savor the last hours of this chapter before stepping into what I thought would be the best day of my life. I remember waking up that morning and seeing Jenna already out of bed, already dressed, talking to someone on the phone in the kitchen. Her voice was low, casual. I only caught a few words, something about delivery times and everything being said. She saw me standing in the doorway and smiled, said, "Just confirming with the florist." I nodded, smiled back, and said something stupid like, 24 hours to go. She walked over, kissed me on the cheek, and said, "Can you believe it's finally happening?" I believed it. Until later that night, when Luke showed up at my place with a look on his face I'd never seen before. We were supposed to grab dinner, maybe a drink, nothing serious. Just one last calm evening before all the noise. But when I opened the door, Luke didn't move. He just stood there holding his phone like it weighed 50 pounds. I said his name, once, twice, and then he looked at me with this stunned, heartbroken expression and said, "Man, I don't know how to say this." My chest tightened instantly. "Say what?" I asked. He stepped inside and handed me his phone. "I didn't believe it at first," he said. "But I can't not show you." On the screen was a video, low quality, clearly amateur, clearly intentional. It started in a hotel room. A woman standing in front of a mirror, adjusting her top, laughing, teasing someone off camera. I didn't recognize her right away. Not until she turned slightly and said something in that voice I knew too well. It was Jenna. She was half-dressed, tipsy maybe, but fully aware of the camera. She looked straight into it at one point, winked, and then started saying things I couldn't listen to a second time. She wasn't trying to hide anything. She wanted to be seen. And apparently, she had been. I watched in silence. One video turned into two. Different hotel rooms. Different outfits. Always the same tone. Always her laughing, posing, performing for the camera, for someone else. And every single one had been uploaded under a fake username. But not fake enough. Someone online had pieced it together. Her tattoos, her voice, even a couple shots where her face was clearly visible. Luke said the videos had been floating around for months on certain forums. He didn't know about them until someone anonymously sent a link to him that day. No message, just a warning. "You should tell your friend before he marries her." I don't remember sitting down, but suddenly I was on the floor, staring at the blank screen after Luke took the phone back. He kept saying he was sorry, that he didn't want to believe it, that he checked, double-checked, even tried to find a way to dismiss it as fake. But it wasn't fake. It was real. Her voice, her face, her choices. The wedding was less than 24 hours away. The invitations had been sent. The venue was decorated. Family members were flying in. We had rings. We had vows. And I had no fiancé anymore. I didn't cry. Not right then. I just sat there, letting it wash over me in waves of disbelief and anger and something worse, humiliation. Not because of what she'd done, but because she'd invited the whole world in. She hadn't just betrayed me. She'd filmed it, uploaded it, posted it where strangers could comment, laugh, replay, where anyone, even my best friend, could find it. And she was still in my house. I stood up, walked out of the room. I don't even remember saying goodbye to Luke. I just knew I couldn't sit there in that moment a second longer. I didn't know what I was going to do next. But I knew one thing with absolute clarity. The wedding was off. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling while Jenna slept just feet away, curled on her side like nothing had changed. Like tomorrow was still going to be our wedding day. Her breathing was steady, peaceful. Mine wasn't. I kept hearing her laugh from those videos, kept seeing her hands on someone else, her body moving like it had nothing to hide. I had never felt so much and so little at once, like my insides had been scooped out and replaced with cold air. I waited until the sun started bleeding through the blinds. Then I got up, quietly, deliberately, and walked into the living room. I didn't rage. I didn't scream. I opened my laptop and started typing. Wedding canceled. I wrote the email to our guests first. I kept it short, no drama, just a few lines. Due to unforeseen circumstances, the wedding tomorrow has been canceled. We appreciate your understanding and support during this time. I sent it to everyone, family, friends, coworkers. I didn't owe them an explanation. Not yet. But they deserved to know. The florist, the planner, the caterer, all canceled. I called the venue and told them to release the date. They offered condolences. I hung up before my voice could crack. She woke up around 9. I heard her shuffle down the hall, yawning, wearing one of my old shirts like she always did. She smiled when she saw me at the kitchen table. "Morning, babe," she said, leaning in to kiss my cheek. I leaned away. She froze, half-bent, confused. "What's wrong?" I looked at her for a long moment. I didn't ask anything. I didn't give her a chance to lie. I just said, "I know." Her face dropped, completely drained of color. "Know what?" she whispered, her voice already crumbling. I stood up and walked past her, grabbed her phone off the counter, unlocked it. She never changed her passcode, and opened the browser. The tabs were still there. Video sites. Upload histories. Confirmation. I held it up. "I know." She said my name like it was a lifeline. "Reach for me." I stepped back. "Don't," I said quietly. "Don't touch me." Then came the excuses. "It was a phase," she said. "It was just a stupid thing I did months ago. I thought I deleted everything. I didn't mean." I held up my hand. "You recorded it. You uploaded it. You looked into the camera." She went silent. "I want you out of my house. Today." She froze. "What?" "No. Tyler, wait, please, can we talk about this?" "There's nothing to talk about," I said. "The wedding is canceled. The guests know. My parents know. Your sister knows. You made your choices. I'm making mine now." That's when she started crying loud, messy, panicked. She dropped to her knees like we were in some movie. Begged. Reached for my hands. Told me it didn't mean anything, that it was a mistake, that she didn't know why she did it. I didn't respond. I walked into the bedroom, pulled her suitcase out of the closet, and started packing. She followed me, still sobbing, asking where I was supposed to go. "I don't care," I said. "You don't live here anymore." At some point, she started getting angry. "You can't just throw me out," she yelled. "We built this life together. You don't just get to erase me." I turned to her. "Calm. You already erased yourself. I'm just taking back the pen." I found the folder with our joint wedding fund. Yes, we had saved together, but most of it had come from me. I transferred the remaining balance to my personal account. She'd been careless enough to leave receipts for lingerie and hotel stays on the shared card. I figured that was enough of a reason to square things. By noon, she was gone. She left in a rideshare with 2 bags and tear-streaked cheeks. She didn't look back. I didn't watch. The messages started that evening. First texts, then voicemails, then emails. Everything from apologies to explanations to flat-out begging. She even sent me a video saying she was spiraling and didn't know how to fix it. I didn't watch the whole thing, just enough to confirm that she still didn't get it. This wasn't about a mistake. It was about deliberate, repeated betrayal. It was about how easily she lied to my face while planning a life with me. It was about how little she must have thought of me to do all of this in the open, where anyone could find it. I haven't responded. Not once. I deleted her number, blocked her email, turned off notifications entirely for a few days just to breathe. For the first time in what feels like years, I can finally hear myself think. The house felt different after she left. Not immediately. At first it just felt hollow, like someone had taken the sound out of everything. The empty space in the closet, the sudden stillness in the mornings, the lack of movement in the kitchen. It was eerie. I kept expecting to hear her laugh from the bathroom or yell across the house about forgetting her charger. But there was nothing. Just silence, and the creak of floorboards I hadn't noticed in years. But in that silence, something else began to grow. Clarity. I spent the first few days just moving, not thinking too hard. I scrubbed the apartment top to bottom, like I could scrape her memory out of the grout. I boxed up her stuff and left it with a friend of hers who offered to handle the return. I canceled the streaming services she insisted on and bought new sheets, not because the old ones were dirty, but because I needed something fresh to sleep under. I stopped checking for new messages. She still tried calls from unknown numbers, new email addresses, even a handwritten letter she dropped off at my office, which I didn't open. At first, I expected to cave, but I didn't. Every time I came close to replying, I'd remember the look on Luke's face when he handed me that phone. The weight of it. The truth I couldn't unknow. Eventually, the noise faded. I picked up extra projects at work to keep busy. Started running again in the mornings with Milo. I made dinner for myself, sat outside on the porch with music playing low, and let the day wind down without waiting for her to walk through the door. It took time, but little by little, I started to feel like the house belonged to me again. Like I belonged to me again. A few weeks later, I met someone. Not on purpose. I wasn't looking. Her name's Camille. She's a friend of a friend, Luke's cousin, actually. We ran into each other at a brewery one Friday night. I was just there to be out of the house. She was there for a birthday. We got talking. I told her about the canceled wedding. No details, just that things had ended recently. She nodded and said, "Yeah, I've been there." That was it. No prying. Just understanding. We started seeing each other slowly. Not dates, really, walks, coffee, sitting in the park talking about everything and nothing. Camille has this calm energy, like she's not trying to prove anything. I didn't realize how much I needed that until it was in front of me. One afternoon, we ended up at this little overlook outside the city, just watching the sun drop behind the hills. I remember turning to her and saying, I thought I knew what love looked like, but I think I was confusing chaos with passion. She didn't say anything back, just took my hand and gave it a light squeeze. That silence felt better than any explanation I'd ever been given. Camille doesn't know all the details. Not yet. But I don't feel like I'm hiding anything. For once, I'm not performing or trying to convince someone I'm okay. I just am okay, maybe not fully healed, maybe still tender around the edges, but no longer broken. The life I thought I lost wasn't a life at all. It was a performance, a set built on soft lies and louder distractions. What I'm building now is slower, quieter, but real. And I'm not looking back. It's been 3 months since what was supposed to be my wedding day. People still ask me how I'm doing. At first, I wasn't sure how to answer. I'd default to something safe, one day at a time, or better than I was. But now, when someone asks, I can finally say it without hesitation. I'm okay. Genuinely. Not pretending. Not deflecting. Just okay. The truth is, I didn't just lose a relationship. I lost a version of myself that was willing to keep doubting what I felt just to preserve what looked good on the outside. And as hard as it was, I'm grateful for that now. I don't miss the guessing. I don't miss the anxiety that lived quietly in my stomach for months. I don't miss wondering whether the person next to me was really with me. What happened with Jenna broke something open in me, but it also made space. Space for honesty. For quiet. For joy that doesn't feel like it's always about to vanish. She still tries to reach out every now and then, through mutual friends, through blocked numbers. One message said, we both made mistakes. Another, if I could go back, I'd choose you. But the thing is she didn't. And I'm not angry about it anymore. I'm just done. I'm building something different now. Camille and I are still taking it slow, and I'm in no rush to label anything. What we have is light, sincere, and unburdened by performance. She doesn't make me question my worth. I don't wonder what she's hiding. We talk. We laugh. We exist together without expectation. That alone feels like more than I thought I'd be ready for. I started therapy too. Not because I was falling apart, but because I didn't want to carry this quietly. I wanted to understand how I missed it, how I silenced my instincts, how I let the image of love distract me from the actual work of love. And that process, brutal as it's been, has given me back parts of myself I forgot were there. Sometimes I think about the wedding, not in a nostalgic way, more like remembering a dream you woke up from just before it turned into a nightmare. I picture the aisle, the flowers, the suit I never wore. I used to feel sick when those images popped into my mind. Now I just breathe through them. It was never going to be real. And that's okay. Closure didn't come from confrontation. It came from choosing not to look back. If you're reading this because you're in that gut-wrenching space, the one where everything feels unstable, where the person you love most suddenly feels like a stranger, please know that clarity will come. Maybe not tomorrow. Maybe not quietly. But it will. And when it does, you'll find yourself in a life that finally makes sense again. Not because you got revenge. Not because you proved anything. But because you remembered who you are.